and thank you for attending this presentation. I'm really happy to be able to give a presentation to people from other countries. And first of all, before I do my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. I think it's important that you know who I am and to have a little idea of my background. My name is Clara. I'm from Madrid. I'm not originally from Madrid. I am located in Madrid, but I was born in Tangier. I belong to a Jewish Sephardic family. I was raised in Tangier until the age of 8, and then we moved to Paris for 2 years, and then we came to Madrid, where my family stayed until now. I was raised in Madrid. I studied psychopedagogy in the Universidad Complutense Madrid. And when I finished, I moved to Israel, where I studied a master's degree in special education and in counseling. And from there, I met my husband, who is from Uruguay. And then we lived in many different countries, in Israel, in the States, in Argentina, in Uruguay. This has allowed me to work in international environments, because for me, it was very easy to understand children and how they felt, how they went through transitions. 20 years ago, I came back to Madrid with my husband, my 2 children. Well, my son is already 31, my daughter is 26. And I started working in an international school. I am the head of counseling, and I work as a school counselor for children aged 3 to 18. In 2015, I came across logotherapy. It was after an experience that was very hard for me, a personal experience. And when I came across Man's Search for Meaning, for me, it was a change in my life. So logotherapy is something that I see not only as a type of psychotherapy, it's also a way of living. It's a philosophy of life. And I thought it was something that I could use in counseling for children. But definitely, I also thought, as Frankel said, that logotherapy is also education towards responsibility, towards being free to be who you want to be, and doing it with responsibility. So I thought it was a great way of educating children. Also, the International Baccalaureate, which is the system of education that we have in this international school, allows for that. Logotherapy fits beautifully with the International Baccalaureate. So now I'm using logotherapy with children in counseling. I'm also using logotherapy within the classrooms. I give assemblies, I give counseling guidance lessons to children of all ages. I talk about the freedom of choice, the responsibility that comes with it. With children, I talk about, like not blaming others for the things we do. I talk about the peer pressure, but still we are always responsible for the choice we make. And so not only I incorporate the basic concept of logotherapy into the daily classroom. Like, for example, to teachers, I tell them to try to set opportunities for the children to find meaning in what they do, they learn, to give room for choices. And with time, I also thought that logotherapy is not only logoeducation, but it's also logoparenting. And I coined that word, and I started because many times in school, of course, parents come to school and they want to talk to the counselor, they want to seek advice, they ask for help on how to raise their children or what to do in specific situations. And I think that a meaning-centered approach to parenting is a good idea, right? So the presentation today is on logoparenting. It's a meaning-centered approach to parenting. Sorry for my English. English is my third language. So sorry if it's not a good English. I also have a script just in case I don't find the word. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to upload the presentation. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to choose the presentation mode, right? Okay. Okay, so now you can see the presentation, right? Okay, so this is a presentation that I have tailored for today, but it's based on a presentation that I have given to parents when we came back from the lockdown. Okay, and it was the presentation is about managing children's anxiety in times of uncertainty. Of course, during the pandemic has been very damaging for all of us, right? In different ways, at different levels, but it has emerged as a major hurricane, right? And it has shaken everybody, children, young children, adolescents, parents. And I see that there hasn't been what we call a single lockdown, a single experience. Everybody has his or her own experience. There were families who lost members of the family or who lost their jobs. This is a private school. It's a very expensive school. There were people who lost their jobs and had to make a huge change in their lives, like leaving the country, going back to their own countries, going to a different school. Also the illness. And what happened with that? So when we face such a reality, we become aware that as human beings, we are fragile, right? And it's cognition of that fragility that we can find our strength. We are fragile, but we can overcome, we can find strength to transform that reality into something good. So at this time of change and uncertainty, focusing on our emotional health and that of our children becomes even more important, right? It is a moment where we need to put the focus on our mental health and that of children as well. I'm going to give some background about logotherapy, even though I think we all know about logotherapy, but I wasn't sure about who was going to attend the presentation. So Sean recommended that I touch some principles about logotherapy, and also I can share with you what I told the parents, because I needed to present logotherapy to people who didn't know anything about it. So this is what I said. I said logotherapy is the third Viennese school of psychotherapy. It was founded by Viktor Frankl. The first is the psychoanalysis. The second is the individual psychology. And logos stands for spirit and meaning. Therefore, Frankel's logotherapy is a meaning-centered therapy, as different from the psychoanalysis, where the therapy is centered on the pleasure, and with Adler, it's centered on the power, right? So for Adler, the primary motivational force in human beings is to find power. And for Freud, it's to find pleasure. Whereas for Frankel, it's to find meaning in one's life. That's what I explained. And then I gave some very specific ideas about the concept of the human being for Viktor Frankl. And I explained that being human means being unique. Every person is unique. Every human being is unique. So for the families, every child is unique. You may have 3 children. Each of them is unique. For Viktor Frankl, we are free human beings, not free from conditions. Okay. For example, we are not free from having maybe a learning disorder. We are not free from certain limitations. We are not free from a disease. We are not free from doing things, whatever things, but we are free to choose our attitude in any circumstances. And this freedom that we all have and that we can choose. And we are also responsible. We are responsible because we are free. That's why we are responsible. If we wouldn't be free, we wouldn't be held responsible for our choices and decisions. And also I explained that we are conscious beings. We are capable of discovering the meaning in each situation in life. And people may ask, so what is it? How do I find meaning? How do you do that, right? So I explained that there are 3 ways of finding meaning in life. One way is by giving through my creativity. This is what we call the creative values. So your children can find meaning in creating something. For example, when they're doing a project, imagine that they're learning about plants and they're going to the nature and they're exploring plants and they're investigating and they're growing their own plants and they're doing something that they like. They are creating something. Maybe they're creating a poster that they're going to present in class. They are basically giving something to the world. That's creative values. Also, your children find meaning by receiving from life, through experiences. So, for example, through the experiences they have with their teachers, with their parents, with their siblings, with their friends, with their peers, with nature, with the environment, all the experiences. In all the experiences, they can find meaning. And the third way of finding meaning is by taking a stance toward life through their attitude. That's the attitudinal values. So, for example, I explained kids are constantly faced with choices, with situations where they have to make a choice. It can be in the playground, in the classroom, at home, and they can always choose the attitude that sometimes the choice is easy, right? Like, for example, do you want, for example, if they buy an ice cream, they can choose the flavor, right? Vanilla or chocolate, for example. But sometimes choosing your attitude is something that is more difficult. There is that possibility. Sometimes it's difficult because sometimes there's this thing that we call peer pressure, or they're shy, or they don't want to stand if they have their own beliefs about things. And sometimes it's difficult, but they have that possibility. Aware of that. because this way, when we teach them that they have this power to choose their attitude, they will not use the blaming, like blaming others for things that they do or that they choose. They will take responsibility for their own actions and attitudes and reactions to things. So it's important that parents understand that, so that they can extrapolate these ideas at home. So as I said at the beginning, I explained that if logotherapy is a meaning-centered therapy, then logoparenting is a meaning-centered approach to parenting. I think it's important that parents understand the basic principles of logotherapy so they can accompany and support their child in the search for meaning. If this is what I try to do in school and to spread around classes, and I coach teachers on, maybe not on everything, but at least if some things can be logotherapeutic, some concepts, for example, the freedom of choice and the responsibility is something very easy to explain. And we all want that, and it's right. We all want our kids to be responsible and to make choices and to how do you say, and to be conscious that they have a role to play and that they are powerful. They have this power, and to give their ownership of to take ownership for their life, right? For the path that they are following. Parents also are an important source of information as well as an ally in their child's personal journey of meaning exploration and self-discovery. So for example, when I work with parents, when I work with a child in counseling, it's very important, the communication with parents or parents with teachers when there is a problem, because we can, they can provide us with a lot of information, and also they are our allies. We can help them set opportunities for finding meaning, or because sometimes, all this is new to them. Even if you explain that to them, I know it's difficult to understand. So you have to help the parents set opportunities. How do you do that? So for example, I remember with a child, he was 6 years old and he had a little sister. It was a baby sister. He was very, very jealous, because the center was the sister, right? So I work with the parents on exploring what were the things that the boy liked doing, right? What is it that he find meaningful? Later, I will talk to you about how I explained how children, according to the age, view meaning. Yes, what is meaning for children? Basically, something meaningful is something that you value. This is how I explain the kids. Something that is meaningful to you is something that you find fulfilling, that you like to do it, that it's meaningful to you, that you give a special value, that you treasure. There are different ways of explaining it. So now I'm going to different parts, but at the beginning, if you remember, the title of this was talking about, how we can deal with this uncertainty, how you can help your children deal with the anxiety that comes from all this experience that they had with the pandemic, and that is still going on with ups and downs. And I explained to the parents that being emotionally healthy doesn't mean that your children are happy all the time, right? It means that that they are aware of their emotions, that they they listen to their feelings, they understand their feelings. It means also that they can deal with these emotions, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable. I like saying that there are not negative emotions. What we call negative emotions, right, and comfortable emotions, are telling us something about us, right? They are signals. They are signaling that something is not going right. And that's a good thing, because then we can do something. And the problem is that when they no longer signal something, right? But that they flash all the time. So this is when we are talking about a chronic emotional stress, for example. But when they signal something and we listen to that, that's normal, we deal with it. Being emotionally healthy means that children can keep problems in perspective and that they bounce back from setbacks. And it means also that they feel good about themselves. That's being emotionally healthy. It's not, like people sometimes, parents think that being happy is being emotionally healthy. Okay. How do children face the uncertainty of what is happening in the world? Uncertainty and chaos are an unavoidable part of the current reality. So it's first of all, uncertainty is always there. But now more than ever, it's true that with this pandemic, the feelings of uncertainty arise more than ever, and the feeling of confusion, chaos, and children may then show feelings of anxiety, fear of the unknown, confusion. However, every human being possesses an intrinsic potential to be resilient. We all have this potential. Some people have more attributes, or are more prone, or it's easier for them to be resilient. But we all have at least one or two attributes or qualities or something that make us be resilient. And these trends sometimes are dormant. So it is our role as parents, teachers, to foster that resilience in children. Actually, in our school, we foster resilience in children. We tell them that being resilient is not just overcoming an obstacle or a problem, but it's also emerging stronger. We teach them about the growth mindset, right? We always learn from something, even if it's from a mistake or from something, we grow stronger. So helping your children realign with the power of their intrinsic potential will help them bounce back from hardships and emerge stronger. So it's putting the focus on fostering that resilience, that possibility of being resilient. I tell them that all children are capable of extraordinary things, that the potential for resilience lies within them, and that we cannot change that they will face challenges, right? We cannot change that. We cannot stop them from having challenges, but we can help them to face the challenges along the way. Okay. Why do some people have an easier time dealing with adversity than others, right? So I do explain that it's not the adversity itself that leads to growth. It's how people respond to it. It's not how big or small the adversity is. It is how you react to that. And this is where you use your freedom of choice and your attitude, right? Which attitude you use. So the way you respond to the adversity will make you be stronger or will make you grow as a person. People who attain personal growth after a crisis spend a lot of time trying to make sense of what happened and understand how it changed them. These are the people who overcome more easily an adversity and who are resilient and who emerge stronger. Sorry, I'm going to read something that I have in my script. According to the psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun of the University of North Carolina, who coined the term post-traumatic growth in the 1990s, the people who grow after a crisis spend a lot of time trying to make sense of what happened and understanding how it changed them. In other words, they search for and find meaning. This is how they grow. Even people in extreme situations, and we've seen that in Franco, right, have the ability to find meaning, or people who have a terminal disease, or going back to the lockdown and the COVID, even people who had losses in the family, who had problems, financial problems, or who had big problems, they can make sense of that, find the meaning, and transform that pain into something good. So those who cope well in a crisis and even grow through it are not those who focus on seeking happiness to feel better. They are those who cultivate an attitude of tragic optimism. As you all know, the term was coined by Viktor Frankl. It's the ability to maintain hope and find meaning. Tragic optimism is the ability to maintain hope and find meaning in life despite its inescapable pain, loss, and suffering. Many times when life seems to be turned upside down, people, many times, and I know it's human, I know it happens, people say, why is it happening to me? And this leaves us exhausted because in the end, we don't get to any solution with the why. So what we really need to do is ask, and now what, right? And this is something that adults can do and that children can do, right? Even in the small things, even when they have a fight with a friend, right? For them, it's a big thing, right? And why. Okay, so now how can we move on? Or what's next, right? Sometimes it's maybe making friends again, maybe, like reconciliate. Or sometimes there is no possibility of reconciliate. So then what? Maybe finding another friend, or maybe, I don't know, but always it's what's next, right? So maintaining hope and looking for the meaning of what is happening to us is the right path. So, for example, children may ask, what can I intentionally do today that will bring a bit of meaning to my life? Something that I find valuable, fulfilling. Each day they can create a special moment they can look forward to all day. This can add meaning and joy to their lives. Each day they can hold on to hope in spite of the circumstances. They can always find the silver lining in the difficulties they experience. And in the end, this is empowering. I've seen that in children. When they see how powerful they are, you can see how, for many times I use books, yes, about, for example, a child that has magic powers and they can transform a problem into something good. But in the end, I explained this magic is something that you also have within yourself, because you have this big power. You can change things. You don't need things to, wait for things to happen. And they realize that, that they have this sense of agency, right? And they're so proud. Michael Steger I don't know, I'm sure you have heard about him. He's the director of the Laboratory for Meaning in Children and Quality of Life. He's done a lot of research in children, in meaning in children. I think he created also a questionnaire for children and adolescents about the meaning in life. And he says that the sense that your personal life is meaningful to you is a cornerstone of psychological well-being. Why? Because it's tightly tied, to being happier, more positive, more confident, more caring, more helpful, more resilient. So this is what I tell the parents, and they can understand that. When you provide opportunities for your children to find meaning in what they do, in what they give, in what they receive, in the choices they make, in the attitude they take, in the family life, in school, outside in the community, when they do things for others, they will be happier, more positive, more confident, more caring. So, and this is what parents want their children to be, right? I don't know what time is it. Okay, so we still have time. Talking about research about meaning in children, Shoshani and Russo-Netzer believe that it is likely that children do express certain aspects of meaning, which, however, is manifested differently than in adults. And this is what I explained before. The meaning in children is manifested, as I said before, is to what is most important to them. Personal meaning was defined by Shoshani and Russo-Netzer to children as that which in their whole life is most important to them. Steger says that, for example, with elementary kids, you can, if you want as a parent to foster this search for meaning, this is what you can do, for example, with elementary age kids. For example, you can start conversations with your children along the following lines. You can ask questions about what they think their best qualities or strengths are, whether they have good relationships with other people, whether they care about others. You can ask them about times that they have made a difference in the world, when they have made someone feel better. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, like you change the world. But for example, you've been in the playground, somebody was left alone, you invited that person to play with you, or somebody fell, you took that person to the nurse's office, you did something for someone. And then they realize that yes, they do give things to the world and they are happy about it. And you can ask them how this made them feel, right? You can ask them how they felt appreciated for doing something or helped someone out. All of these kinds of questions can start a conversation about your kid's unique way of being in and contributing to the world. I am quoting, okay? Quoting Steger. So this was for children like in elementary school. In middle school, Kids are being exposed to ideas, behaviors, assumptions, priorities that maybe they're completely different from the ones that they have always assumed that they were true. So for kids this age, parents can start conversation focusing on how their children's sense of who they are and how they relate to others or what life is has changed. Because over time, as children grow up and they form their own personality, the view they have about the world, about people, about they relate to others might change. And it will change. And this change will tell you what is meaningful to them, what they value, or what is important to them. And then by high school, we hope that children see how much their lives matter and see that they are at the beginning of a compelling and strengthening life story and that they have some inklings and purpose. The question of what do you want to do with your life is too big. Okay, we know that. We can't say, what do you want to do with your life? That's too big for a single conversation. So it's better to have small, frequent conversation about how they view themselves, how they view their lives in specific situations, and what kind of impact they would like to leave on others. I think these conversations are important. What is it that you want other people think about you, or what is the how do you say the print that you would like to live in this world, right? Okay, so as I said before, children, and I tell the parent, children have the power to shape their circumstances rather than be dictated by them. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. This is from Wayne Dyer. I have, I guess you heard about him. He has written books for adults and also for children, and they're totally based on Viktor Frankl's principles. So I have this one, Incredible You, and also Unstoppable Me, 10 Ways to Soar Through Life. And all this is really, it's taken from Frankl. So I just want to share with you quickly 10 ways to soar through life, just the sentence, just the ways, without developing them. And it's really Frankl. So the first one is, you're great no matter what. The second is, persistence pays off. The third, welcome the unknown. The fourth, you have a choice. The fifth, farewell to worry. The sixth, peace begins with you. The seventh, enjoy the here and now. The eighth, healthy me. It's about self-care, right? Like taking care about yourself. The ninth, creativity is the key. And the 10th, what can you give? And the last one, I love it. It's really beautiful because it says something like, I would like to share the number 10, if you don't mind. It says, what is a life full of meaning and purpose? One that's truly limit-free. It's when you learn to look outside yourself and not always think, what about me? It means seeing goodness and beauty everywhere you turn and taking every experience in life as a chance for you to learn. It's being at peace every day with a respect for all things that live and not wondering what you can get, but wondering what you can give. So this is the kind of things that I teach. This is the kind of books that I take to classrooms. So as you can see, this is for children at a very young age. And the same concepts I do extrapolate to older children. And this is what I tell the parents that I teach in school, so they can these same concepts they can apply while raising their children. So as I said, Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. So basically, children can change their perspective of the situation anytime. Every person has the human capacity for self-determination, which shapes each person as an individual. Even young children already have their own personalities. They make their own individual choices. They shape their circumstances. Far from being faith-based, having a positive outlook in difficult circumstances, not only is an important predictor of resilience, it's the most important predictor of it. People who are resilient tend to be more positive and optimistic compared with less resilient ones. And of course, when I use the word optimistic, I don't want, and I say that it's not the pink-colored concept of optimistic no matter what, is being genuinely positive and having hope and believing that things can get better and that I can transform something bad into something good. So when kids learn that they have this power, they are better able to regulate their emotions. They are able to maintain their optimism through the most difficult circumstances. And then I tell them, Franco had to see many horrible things while he was a Nazi prisoner, but by changing his mindset and the way he looked at things, he was able to overcome the hardships that were thrown at him and lived to tell his incredible story. Of course, I had to make things easy, right, to explain, because we need to know that these parents don't know anything about logotherapy. So we have to try to explain this very easily. And I tell the parents, although your child may be too young to consider a long-term look on their own, right? They cannot maybe look what will happen in 10 years. You can help them see that there is a future beyond the current situation. If we go back to our situation of COVID-19 or any other difficult situation, and that the future can be good. You can accompany your child in that hope and in that perspective of things. So we all have this ultimate freedom to choose our attitude, but each of us makes an active choice to exercise our freedom. Awareness of attitudes is crucial. We need to be aware of what our attitude is at a certain moment and aware that I can change my attitude anytime. When you face a challenging situation, these are the first questions to ask yourself. Am I aware of my current attitude towards the situation? If necessary, am I willing to change my attitude? So this can be even an exercise that they can do in specific circumstances. When the child goes home and the adolescent, regardless the age, with a problem, well, maybe we can stop and think about what is your current attitude. Are you willing to change your attitude? Maybe things will get better just by changing your attitude. Of course, I tell the parents to help their children work out what they can and they can't control. That's very basic. many decisions are out of our hands, and this can cause an unsettling emotion, an unsettling state of mind. But figuring out precisely what they can and can't do will help them to maintain a sense of stability and to reduce fear or anxiety. Okay, so having a sense of what I can control and what I can't control. And the things that I can't control, right? What is the attitude that I choose? I talked to parents about stability rocks, which are routines, rituals that are important. For example, this was very meaningful when they had the lockdown, that they were locked down at home. And so it was important to have some kind of stability rocks, like waking up at the same time every day, eating regular and healthy meals, going to bed at the same hour, right? Like some kind of structure, doing some form of exercise, connecting with friends, even if it was just virtually. How do your children deal with uncomfortable thoughts? Well, tell your children you're not your thoughts. You are a human being with thoughts. Being anxious is a normal part of being human. It's important to understand that we are not our thoughts. Thoughts may come into our head for a whole bunch of reasons. Accept them for what they are, just thoughts. But don't get stuck on these thoughts, and don't think that your thoughts that you have at a certain time will define who you are, your being, your human being, you as a person. You are not your thoughts. Help your children to build an openness to uncertainty. The fact that life is filled with surprises, unexpected events, change, a whole lot of it isn't necessarily a bad thing. We need to be open because life is full of uncertainty. And I would like to share with you that I have lately discovered a book. I don't know if you have heard about it. I didn't hear about it before. I just came across it lately. Life is in the transitions, mastering change at any age. Oh, I didn't write the last name. Bruce Feiler. Okay, the name is Bruce Feiler, Feiler. And he says the linear life is dead. He introduces the vision of the non-linear life, in which if each of us faces dozens of disruptors, twists, turns, setbacks, crises. Well, he did a research with lots of people of different backgrounds, countries, and then he came up to the conclusion that 1 in 10 of these disruptors becomes what he calls a life quake, a massive change that leads to a life transition. Everyone faces obstacles along the way, but it's true that this is the first time with the COVID-19 pandemic that the entire planet has experienced life quakes simultaneously. Like we all have this in common, right? Like, for example, if there is a war in 2 or 3 countries, like the same war that involves 1, 2, or 3 countries, but it's not the whole world, right? But really, the COVID-19, we are all affected in the entire globe. So Feiler says, I think if there's any habit we should consider breaking, it is confidence about what's going to happen in the year to come. Feiler believes we should approach the coming year with more humility. This doesn't mean that we can't set goals. I think it's important. I do encourage my students all the time to set goals, to have something to look forward to make plans, but don't expect things to unfold exactly the way you picture them in your mind. And well, I'm going to go very quickly through this. I, of course, tell the parents to reduce screen time. We know how children are exposed to screen time. And I tell them about the impact of high screen time. It impacts on learning, it impacts on their social skills, it impacts on their emotions, on their personality. I think that I'm going to pass this because I'm sure you know about it. And I tell them, yes, that to reduce the screen time because it can lead to addiction. They can develop a reward-seeking behavior such as addiction. It affects their sleeping patterns, risky behaviors. It affects their weight, the overall health. And what I do recommend is to practice self-compassion habits. It requires self-kindness, that we be gentle and understanding with ourselves rather than being harshly critical and judgmental. I talk a lot about self-compassion to children in school, and I give them an example. If you see someone who is suffering or who is sad or who is going through a hard time, what do? And they will normally answer, I help, or I see what I can do. I show empathy. Well, do that for yourself, as if yourself was that person that you are looking out at. Like, you can be kind to others, but you also need to be kind to yourself. Being self-compassionate requires the recognition of our common humanity, feeling connected with others in the experience of life rather than feeling isolated and alienated by our suffering. It requires also mindfulness. Instead of triggering more feelings of stress and anxiety, children can simply appreciate the present moment, give themselves opportunities to disconnect from unhelpful thoughts about the future, and really live the present, and stop having fear about the future. Okay, and this is these are some of the resources that I mentioned, the bibliography. Sorry for my English. And well, I'm passionate about logotherapy with children. I think that maybe, that logotherapy is not just for adults, and that we can do so much in education, and we can transform education. We can transform the way we raise children. And okay, so if you have any question.
Clara, let me comment first of all, and just saying you bursting with logotherapy. And what impresses us most of all, actually, is to see how the fundamentals of logotherapy, where Frankl said that he laid the foundation. We can't lay that foundation again. The principles are the principles, but it's application. It's application in so many fields. This is the innovation. This is what we build on that foundation. And what is so incredible with your particular interest in bringing these principles in simple, understandable terms to children and parents in real life situations makes it incredibly real. I think that, taking logotherapy down to the level of a child just makes it more profound. Because, you can't experience an abstract meaning concept in real terms. How does it work in real life? How does somebody experience it? What does it do to them? This is an exploration that you cannot do anywhere else as deeply and as profoundly as with children. I am particularly blessed by what you presented today, and also to see how logotherapy has exploded in the books that you also brought to our attention, and we see the research that is being done. But the particular emphasis of tonight, to me, is actually the thing of crucial importance. You know that Frankl himself never really delved into childhood experiences, and it was my own training in developmental psychology, how optimal the personality development from birth to death, that actually cast such light for me to go and explore his principles in how it works with children. How do you provoke a sense of meaning in children, and what brings them a sense of meaning? And this is what you did for us tonight. In fact, you are a shining example. And I can see that children would be so affected by you, and parents will be so drawn to you, exactly because you've simplified abstract meaning concepts in the most simple, but also therefore profound ways in how they work. And we really want to thank you. And in fact, I'm going to ask your permission if I can use your video in sending it to some of the parents I know that have children that they are struggling with. So, and
of course,
yes, even my own beloved son with 5 children, he's a wonderful parent, and so is my daughter-in-law. But I think they'll be so blessed to be affirmed in what they are actually doing in listening to your presentation. And we thank you for it. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for attending it. Thank you so much.